Thanks for watching the JB Arts YouTube channel. Today we've got clay tombstones. So we've got some natural clay here. It's air dry, so you just have to leave it and it'll dry hard. We are going to give it a paint, extra sort of sealant and protector. Now these will remain sort of water soluble, so you want to make sure you don't put it outside. Rolling it flat, you don't need to press very hard. Just a nice smooth roll. And it's okay if we have a little bit of, cracks or textures or things from the board. Those can actually help. Matter of fact, if you try and do this on like cement floor or bricks or something like that, you can get some extra cool textures into it. So here I'm just doing a quick little sculpture of a vulture. So I'm just kind of pinching or displacing the clay. That's what it's actually called. We're sort of just manipulating the clay that's there and just doing little pinches. It's soft clay. You can manipulate it sort of how you want and put in great textures, all sorts of cool things. Next I'm going to do a little pumpkin. So that's sort of the top. And here I'm just sort of putting the tool in a little bit and sort of rounding the edges for the pumpkin. It's a little bit exaggerated, but that's, for a sculpture we want it to catch light really nice. So we end up exaggerating things a little bit more. So we made the mouth pretty deep and then the eyes, and then it needs a little top. So I'm just adding a bit of water and wiggling it in really well. And there we go. Fantastic. Now I'm actually going to do sort of 3 examples. This first one I actually didn't like very much and ended up deciding to redo it. And I remember that the plastic sticks really well to the clay. So we want to make sure we put in sort of a barrier between, and I'll show you that on the next 2. But I'm pretty well finished this one. I didn't really like it. I didn't sort of plan that one out very well, and well, I thought I'd show you my mistakes too. And now I just take the ball of clay, roll it back up into a blob, and roll it out the same way sort of that I did before. You can see a little air pocket in there, sort of smoosh it out a bit, and there we go. If anyone at home does have access to a pottery kiln, you can have this clay fired. It is fireable as well. So I'm taking off all the excess. Now that excess clay that you see there is actually what I'm going to use to make the rest of the sculpture interesting. So here we go. This is how we impress. I just put a piece of Kleenex over top, and then the plastic piece releases nicely. There you go. Now we're getting some fantastic impressions. Okay, you might get a little bit of paper towel left behind or Kleenex. You can just pull that away. Kleenex does work better than paper towel because the grain is much smoother. Now when you're pushing, you don't want to push all the way through. I need to make sure that's clear. You're just sort of getting a little bit of the impression of it. As soon as you stand your clay up, it'll cast a beautiful shadow and you'll be able to see those little creatures and stuff a lot more. So I'm going back to my vulture here. You get to see the lesson again. I just sort of pinch it to get it to the shape that I want. So you see there I have to sort of wet it and wiggle it, even if I rough up the surface a bit. That makes a better adhesion. You'll see on the third one what I'm talking about. Now this one in particular I ended up liking and just decided to do another example. These can take you a really long time if you want to put in a lot of details, or they can be done quite quickly by just putting on a few details and just impressing a little bit. So it's up to you how long it takes you to do. You could spend hours or just a short period of time. So here I've got some extra clay. I might as well use it all up. Decided to do a hand coming out. Ooh, spooky. So try and get it sort of coming out of the tombstone a bit. You see I had to sort of wet it and smooth it out. There we go. And now you can always write something on the tombstone or put more impression pieces where you find yourself with a bit of space, a little bit of extra spot where nothing is happening. So far I've started to create sort of a border, and then you can certainly write something on the inside. Now to make sure it stands out, I like to use the thicker tool. The pencil only sort of scratches the surface, where that the red tool that comes in your kit, as you see, it leaves a much more defined impression. Because it writes larger though, you have to make sure that you can fit it all. And there we go, just little pencil dabs. Finishes the texture quite nicely. And now I'm cutting out little bits to make it look like the tombstone's sort of old and broken up. Maybe a monster's already had a go at it once or twice. And I thought about putting something else extra. I just had this tiny little bit of clay left and trying to figure out what to do with it. And I thought I'd make the top of the tombstone a little bit more interesting. Give it a hole and a little spike on top. I'm going over with my finger and sort of smoothing out certain areas. I don't want to take away some interesting textures, but there are some bits that looked a little bit sharp, so I just wanted to smooth them out. Also, I find myself with a little bit of negative space, a little bit of spots where there's nothing that could be a little bit more interesting, so I just impress a couple more things in. Why not? Make it busy and full, lots to look at. Ta-da! Great. And then I take it, and I can smush it back up. Well, here I'm going to do an example of a bat. I didn't quite do the wing long enough. I didn't notice until after I'd cut in the little pieces. And there we go. Little screaming bat. Alright folks, this one I'm going to make a spider. So we start with a large body and then sort of pinch out the legs. Legs stay stuck on better if you sort of mold them from the one blob you had rather than trying to stick them on. Whenever you stick pieces on, sometimes they don't get even adhesion. They have the tendency to break a bit more. So you want to be really careful of that. There we go. My little spider crawling up. Perfect. Ooh, a ghost. Yay. So the ghost we want to be a little bit smoother, right? So you can see the side of my thumb sort of smearing the clay smooth. It's amazing how smooth you can get your clay with just your fingertips and the tiniest bit of water. Now remember not to add too much water or you'll have a mud puddle on your hands. And if you see it cracking lots or things aren't sticking together, it means it's gone too much into dirt again and you want to add just a little amount of water. So this next one here is a cute little cat. He can sit on the top. So there you go. I've given you a few other little sculpture ideas that you could do with your tombstone. And then I've got one more full one that I'm going to demonstrate. And sort of an idea that I had last minute, and I wanted to make sure that I wanted you to see it. So this is try 3. This is all the same piece of clay, by the way, just sort of one after another. Now, I like that texture that's there. I'm not trying to roll out too much of it, but I do want my tombstone a certain size. Now this one I want a little bit extra clay to work with. I know what kind of sculpture I'm getting. There's a couple of air holes there that I want, or air pockets. I just had to sort of poke them with a pencil earlier. So I'm doing more of an interesting shape with my tombstone. And that gives me lots of access to cut out. You can see I cut out the big shapes and then went into the smaller ones. You can cut with your pencil, just maybe wet the tip of it first so it cuts through the clay a bit easier. There we go. That's a good shape. Now we're going to do Jack the Pumpkin King, if anybody's seen Nightmare Before Christmas. What a fun character, what a fun movie. So I make sort of half a head, sort of pinch it into the shape that I want, pencil in where the mouth is going to go, and sort of use the eraser tool to give me eyes and nose. There we go. That wasn't so hard, was it? So here I scratch it all up, and this will give me the best adhesion. I just give it a good wiggle. You can see how I wiggled it, I wiggled the whole table. And now the body here, I'm not going to scratch, wet, and wiggle. I won't admit that I forgot or not. I'll let you decide. But when we go to paint it, I'll show you how to stick it on properly. So here I get the right shape. I sort of test it out and I go, it's a little long. Sort of squish it out thinner. And now we're getting his little bat bow. Maybe it's a cat. I've never been too sure. And then realize it's too big and cut half of it off. There we go. I scratch it up too. But note that I forgot to scratch or wet the body to the tombstone, because it will fall off as soon as it's dry. Here are all the little pieces to his collar, his bow tie, if you will. Now the area is pretty wet, and I've got sort of moisture on my fingers, so those stuck quite well. Put in little pencil details of his suit. And do little skinny arms and just sort of roll them out thin. You want to be gentle with this part. It's only a soft piece of clay. If you find yourself with oval little sausages instead of round ones, then you want to press less. Go gentle with it. If it's a really skinny fine spot, they're more fragile. You have to be careful that you're not going to break them in the future. If you're making something too fragile, then maybe you want to simplify your design a little bit. You don't necessarily need every little detail in there. So here's another little bat shape. So I did the wings on this one and then I stuck on the body. Very similar to the other bat that I had done on the other activity. There we go. Give it a good wiggle. It's stuck. I can reshape the wings. And now put a few impressions in. I wanted sort of like a pile of bones at the bottom. I thought that'd be funny. So on this activity, I'm going to keep trying to use up every little piece of clay. So here at the bottom, I smush it all back up. And I'm going to make a little base for it, almost like a spot where someone was buried just under the tombstone. Also, that'll help your tombstone stand up in the future. So remember, these can't go outside. They are just dirt in a shape, essentially. So you've got to be really careful with it. So here we go. This is where the body sort of fell off, and I just used paint to stick it on. Acrylic paint in its simplest form is actually just like a high-powered colored glue. So if we put it on there, let it dry, it'll be stuck forever. Keep in mind that it's not like super glue or crazy glue where it dries instantly. You gotta, as long as it takes for the paint to dry, that's how long it'll take for your glue to set. So I'm trying to sort of paint everywhere, get into every little crack, and this sort of unifies it. You can see your shadows better, and yeah, it definitely enhances the look of the sculpture. Also, the paint itself is going to strengthen the sculpture a little bit and make it easier to clean if it ever gets dusty in the future. Now, if you want, at any time, you can just, and if you don't paint it, you can always reconstitute the clay with a bit of water and turn it into more sculptures if you want. You can do whatever you want with it. You can keep it in a bag and reuse it again and again and again and again and make whatever kind of sculptures you want. As soon as you paint it, though, you've committed. You're done. All right, just going over a couple places that I missed. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share. I really appreciate you watching these videos. Have a great day.